Welcome, fellow teachers! Join us for today's Spreads webinar series. Spreads is sharing of presentation resources for the enhancement of learning achievement, digital literacy, and 21st century skills of pre-service teachers. Every series intends to provide support to teacher educators and pre-service teachers in exploring a specific course in professional education. It comes with a 25-minute presentation that elaborates on a content topic. Spreads is a faculty-student collaborative instructional materials project of the country's Center for Teacher Education, the Philippine Normal University, Manila, through its Faculty of Education Sciences under the College of Teacher Development. Most significantly, Spreads is created by pre-service teachers for pre-service teachers.
Spread Series 1 focuses on teaching strategies, a key content of the professional education course Principles and Methods of Teaching. This Spreads webinar session deals with teaching strategies for questioning and feedback techniques. We shall answer the following thinking hat questions. What are questioning and feedback techniques? Teaching learning processes are enhanced when there is active engagement and participation during discussion. This makes classroom discussions more engrossing and would bring an amiable environment of student-teacher interaction. This may be prompted by utilizing effective questioning and feedback techniques. Take a look in this situation.
Who wrote Romeo and Juliet?
William Shakespeare.
That's correct.
This situation is an example of questioning and feedback. But how do we define questioning? Questioning is an essential skill all teachers must have. Questioning techniques consist of teacher's approach, strategy, and style in delivering questions. These promote open conversations, inspire intellectual thought, and encourage teacher-to-learner and learner-to-learner interactions, which trigger people to think. How do we define feedback? In the example earlier, feedback is when the teacher responded to the student. Feedbacking helps teachers convey their appreciation of their learners' response and performances. It provides learners information on how they cope as they accomplish learning tasks. Interactive classrooms use questioning and feedback to encourage teacher-to-learner and peer-to-peer interaction as a way in which students could respond to questions and expand on ideas. Who said questioning and feedbacking techniques are important? Questioning and feedback go all the way back from the pedagogical approach of the Greek philosophers in knowledge inquisition and debate during the 5th century BC. The most popular proponent then was Socrates. He demonstrated the value of asking deep questions and probing as a teaching strategy. Aristotle recognized the importance of feedback. In particular, the role of external feedback from a teacher in making a difference between learning to do something well and learning to do something poorly. The next proponent is Benjamin Bloom, who was known for developing taxonomies in 1956. Bloom's 6 cognitive levels range from simple recall or recognition of facts to increasingly more complex and abstract intellectual tasks. Dr. Lauren Anderson, a former student of Bloom, updated and revised the taxonomy, reflecting relevance to the 21st century work for both students and teachers. Aside from Bloom, contemporary proponents such as William Willen, Mary Jane Ashner and James Gallagher all agreed to divide questions into categories. In 1970s, British researcher Sinclair and Coulthard developed the IRF, or Initiation Response Feedback Pattern of discussion between the teacher and the learner. More significantly, Dr. Edward de Bono offered the thinking hats during 1985, such as the white, yellow, black, red, green, and blue hat, which allows teachers to assess pupils' current level of thinking and help students think concretely about the kind of feedback they are giving. What should teachers keep in mind during questioning and feedback? What students already know affects their learning. When students' prior knowledge acquired before a course is accurate and appropriate, it will aid learning. But when students' prior knowledge is inappropriate or inaccurate, it will hinder learning. Use questionnaires to help the students reactivate these concepts and aid in the integration and retention of new knowledge. Learning is based on context. Generalizing learning to new contexts is not spontaneous, but instead needs to be facilitated. Teachers should not assume that students will immediately or naturally draw on relevant prior knowledge. Teachers should deliberately activate students' prior knowledge to help them forge robust links to new knowledge. Clear, explanatory, and timely feedback is important for learning. An effective feedback from the teachers nurture the students' learning. A feedback should be conveyed properly and should direct to a goal that learners understand. This way, the effectiveness of feedback increases. Student creativity can be fostered. Questioning encourages recalling, deepens the learning process and comprehension, promotes the imagination and problem solving, satisfies the sense of curiosity, and increases creativity. Expectations affect outcomes. Feedback can come in the form of expectations. Feedback can help the students get back onto the learning track more effectively. It also helps students gauge their progress and, if given effectively, can motivate the students. Setting achievable goals enhances motivation. Setting goals that are short-term, specific, and moderately challenging enhances motivation more than establishing goals that are long-term, general, and overly challenging. Brainstorming and asking questions, opening participants' mind to newer possibilities, can have a transformative shift in the creative atmosphere. Interpersonal relationships and communication are critical to both the teaching-learning process and the social-emotional development of students. Building relationships and communication makes questioning and feedback a medium for students to engage in discussion, which they can contribute and gain from. Students' skills, knowledge, and abilities are best measured with assessment process. Assessment should be grounded in psychological science with well-defined standards for quality and fairness. Questioning and feedback are instrumental in assessment to allow the teacher to gauge what level of learning the learner has achieved. Questions should be optimized by its validity and sufficiency. When is the best time to ask questions and provide feedback? Choosing the best time to ask your questions to learners depends on their age level, capability, and interest regarding the subject matter. You can ask your students questions after conducting a motivational activity to catch their interest, so that they will have basis in answering your questions. On the other hand, you can ask questions before an activity with older students. Older learners are usually the ones who grow fond of subject matters even before conducting an activity. Thus, asking them questions during that point will be an efficient move. Then, your feedback is best given after the wait time. The wait time usually occurs after you have posed the question. This is a period of silence that gives the students time to think. This usually consists of two critical periods: wait time 1 and wait time 2. The first one, in order to generate higher participation, should last 3 to 5 seconds before a student may respond to the question. This is only when wait time 2 may take place. This is designed for students to assess their answers and give them enough time to complete these and make up their minds. It is then after this period that you may provide feedback on the responses given and build up on their ideas altogether. It is essential that you should ask more than one student in the class before stating the right answer. 2 or more responses from the class gives you and also the students a number of information to base on and develop their answers from. These responses will make up for a much established feedback from you. Before we list examples of questioning techniques, let us identify the 2 main types of questions teachers can use in the classroom. An instructor might consider using closed or open questions. Closed for when there are a limited number of acceptable answers that are usually anticipated by the instructor. Open for when there are many acceptable answers, most of which will not be anticipated by the instructor. The following is a list of techniques on how to use these types of questions in the classroom. Prompting, funneling, probing, rephrasing, refocusing, redirecting to another student, using wait time. There are also feedbacking techniques that can be used. Here are some examples. Reinforcement, paraphrasing, suggesting a resource, reframing, providing information or examples. Now, how can these techniques be effectively carried out? Prompting questions keep the students engaged because the teacher does not immediately tell the answer. Probing questions are designed to encourage deep thought about a specific topic. Some examples are: funnel questions begin with an open question, then transition to a closed question. If a question is either met with dead air or a response an instructor isn't quite expecting, the instructor can try one of these 3 strategies. Reword the question. Provide some information. Break the question down into manageable parts. When a student responds to a question, the instructor can ask another student to comment on the statement. When a student provides a response that appears out of context, the instructor can encourage the student to tie their response to the content being discussed. The instructor can give something or take something away to improve the learner's performance. An instructor can put a student's ideas into their own words to simplify the student's answer. When a student responds with a question, the instructor may also refer them to a resource where they can find the answer. Or, the instructor can provide more information by answering the question themselves or by giving examples. Reframing lets an instructor help a student look at something from a different perspective. Teachers experience pitfalls in questioning and feedbacking, such as vague questions may frustrate and confuse the students if they do not understand what the teacher is asking, which can lead to no response at all. Teachers tend to ask a lot of questions, but some of them are not important in knowing the lesson or pointing out the main ideas of the topic. If a teacher asks the student a question and bombards them with more follow-up questions, then the student may experience difficulties in digesting the questions due to the continuous ideas raised by the teacher. Wait time is the period where the teacher waits before calling on a student to respond to the question. Without this, the students are pressured and often fail to answer due to the lack of time to think. If the sequence of questions is not properly guided towards the level of understanding, then the students may not be able to develop their own proficiency. When teachers ask the students if they understand the discussion without proper assessment, it will not guarantee that the students really understood the lesson. Some teachers ask questions that already contain the answer. This is why students struggle to construct their own ideas and to widen their perspectives. This happens when teachers ask an open question but expect a closed response. They ask for insights but consider only the ideas that are close to or same as theirs. If the teacher's method in correcting the student is insensitive, then there's a risk of making the students feel discouraged and lose confidence in reciting when corrected. Sometimes students give answers that are off beam. By disregarding them completely, their train of thought is hindered and the opportunity to build on their ideas to lead them to the correct answer vanishes. To address the pitfalls in questioning and feedbacking techniques, here are some helpful tips to consider that can help you facilitate an effective discussion. Tip 1. Plan ahead. Advanced preparation will help the questioning session in a classroom to be effective. The teacher should be aware of their purpose for asking questions in order to determine what kind of answer they should expect from the students. Tip 2. Plan probing questions in advance that stays in the scope of the lesson. This can be built in as follow-up questions to extend an answer. Tip 3. As teachers, tease out the issues for yourself first and focus each question on one idea only. Use direct, concrete language and as few words as possible. Tip 4. Give students time to answer and provide prompts to help them if necessary. Ask conscripts rather than volunteers to answer questions. Tip 5. Plan sequences of questions to help students move to higher levels of thinking. Tip 6. Ask students direct questions with explicit information. This may increase student engagement in asking their own questions. Tip 7. Questions should not contain implied answers, so students could think for themselves and formulate answers that are purely from their understanding. Tip 8. Provide students a clear idea of the response you want. Remember, if you ask open questions, you must expect to get a range of answers. Acknowledge all responses by simply saying, "Thank you." Tip 9. Provide prompts and scaffolds to help students correct their mistakes. Feedback should be immediate and evidence-based. Tell the learner what they did well and what to improve. The longer someone has to wait with feedback will only result or lead them to continue doing something incorrectly, disengage from the task, take the feedback poorly, or as criticism. Tip 10. Allow the students to elaborate their answers if it seems off beam. You could also ask other students to extend the answer. Take note that it's important not to cut students when they've given a wrong answer. May this session help you ask more effective questions to make your learners really think and provide them feedback to make them think even more.
Please watch more presentations in Spread Series 1. Join us again in our next Spreads webinar series. Bye!